What if the most famous monument on Earth was not built out of pride alone, but out of memory? What if the towering stones rising from the desert are not just remnants of ancient ambition, but echoes of a fear so deep it shaped the course of civilization itself? And what if the story behind the Great Pyramid of Giza begins not in Egypt, but in the pages of the Book of Genesis? Stand for a moment in imagination on the Giza Plateau. The wind moves across dry sand. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. Before you rises a structure so immense that even modern skyscrapers fail to diminish its presence. For over 4,500 years, it has stood almost perfectly aligned to the cardinal directions. Its base covers more than 13 acres. Its original casing stones once reflected sunlight like a polished mirror. And yet, despite centuries of study, debate, and excavation, one question still lingers in the air like desert dust. Why was it really built? Mainstream archaeology identifies it as the tomb of Pharaoh Khufu, constructed during Egypt's 4th dynasty around 2580 to 2560 BC. That conclusion rests on substantial evidence, including quarry marks discovered in internal chambers referencing Khufu's work crews. The pyramid sits among other monumental structures on the plateau near Giza, just outside modern Cairo, in a region that became the heart of royal burial traditions. And yet, even within established scholarship, there remains fascination. Not because the historical attribution is weak, but because the structure itself is extraordinary. Over 2 million limestone and granite blocks were quarried, transported, and placed with remarkable precision. Its alignment to true north deviates by only a tiny fraction of a degree. Its geometry is elegant and intentional. Its scale defies casual explanation. But perhaps the deeper mystery is not how it was built. Perhaps the deeper mystery is why humans felt compelled to build something so enduring in the first place. To explore that question, we step back, not to reject archaeology, but to widen the lens. Because monuments are never just stone. They are psychology and architecture. They are belief systems made visible. They are fear, hope, ambition, and memory carved into permanence. And if we follow the thread of memory far enough back, we encounter one of the most powerful narratives in human history, the story of a global flood recorded in Genesis. According to the biblical account, humanity once witnessed an event so catastrophic it reshaped the world. The flood narrative describes divine judgment, the collapse of civilization, and the survival of a single family through an ark built under instruction. Whether one reads this account as literal history, theological symbolism, or sacred tradition, its impact on human imagination cannot be overstated. Flood stories appear in cultures across the ancient world. The idea of overwhelming waters wiping out society is deeply embedded in early civilizations. Imagine being among the survivors described in Genesis. Imagine stepping onto land after months surrounded by water. Imagine seeing a world stripped clean of cities, monuments, and systems of power. According to the narrative, 8 individuals carried forward not only life, but memory. Memory of judgment, memory of vulnerability, memory that human strength alone could not prevent catastrophe. The text describes a covenant marked by a rainbow, a promise that the earth would not again be destroyed by flood. Yet even promises do not erase trauma. Survivors of disaster do not simply forget. They rebuild, but they rebuild differently. Genesis moves quickly through generations, and within a short span we see humanity gathering, organizing, constructing cities. Then comes one of the most revealing statements in early scripture. Let us build for ourselves a city and a tower, and make a name for ourselves. This account, often called the Tower of Babel narrative, describes a unified humanity seeking permanence and security. The issue was not architecture alone, it was motive, a desire to consolidate power, to prevent scattering, to create something that would endure. And here is where the connection becomes intriguing, not as a claim of direct historical linkage, but as a reflection of recurring human instinct. After catastrophe, humans build stronger. After vulnerability, humans seek control. After judgment, humans seek permanence. Across history, civilizations have responded to instability by constructing monuments meant to defy time. Massive walls, towers, temples, structures that say, "We are here, we will remain." In ancient Egypt, this instinct found one of its most dramatic expressions. Egyptian civilization developed along the Nile, a river whose annual flooding was both life-giving and potentially destructive. Stability required understanding cycles of water, of stars, of seasons. Egyptian cosmology revolved around order emerging from chaos. The concept of Ma'at, often translated as balance or cosmic order, shaped their worldview. Kings were not merely rulers, they were guarantors of stability. When Pharaoh Khufu commissioned the Great Pyramid, it was not simply an act of ego. It was embedded in a culture deeply concerned with eternity, continuity, and cosmic harmony. The pyramid form itself evolved from earlier mastaba tombs. Architectural experimentation preceded its construction. It did not appear out of nowhere, but it did represent a pinnacle of refinement. Yet even understanding this, we must ask, why did so many ancient cultures invest staggering resources into monumental architecture? The answer lies in something universal. Humans fear erasure. We fear that time will swallow our achievements, that disaster will undo our work, that memory will fade, and so we build, we write, we carve, we align structures with stars, we encode meaning into stone. The Great Pyramid's orientation to cardinal directions suggests careful astronomical observation. Its internal chambers and passageways reveal deliberate planning. Some shafts appear to align roughly with stars significant in Egyptian cosmology as they appeared in the 3rd millennium BC. Scholars debate the symbolic meaning of these alignments, but the effort itself is clear. This was not random construction. It was intentional, measured, purposeful. And perhaps that purpose was larger than burial alone. Not larger in contradiction to established history, but larger in psychological depth. The pyramid stands not only as a royal monument, but as a declaration. Order can be built, knowledge can be preserved, civilization can endure. And this is where the biblical lens offers reflection, not as archaeological override, but as philosophical insight. Genesis portrays humanity repeatedly attempting to secure itself apart from reliance on divine authority. The Babel story illustrates collective ambition. The flood narrative illustrates vulnerability. Together they form a pattern: fear of judgment, desire for stability, pursuit of permanence. When viewed through that lens, the Great Pyramid becomes more than a tomb. It becomes a symbol of post-catastrophe civilization striving for endurance. Whether one interprets Genesis as literal chronology or theological archetype, it captures something true about human behavior. After disruption, we seek control. After chaos, we construct order. After fear, we build monuments. Standing before the Great Pyramid today, tourists see engineering brilliance. Historians see dynastic power. Archaeologists see labor organization and resource management. But there is another layer available to contemplation: the human heart. What kind of civilization mobilizes tens of thousands of workers for decades to build a structure intended to last thousands of years? A civilization thinking about eternity. A civilization thinking about survival. A civilization determined that whatever comes, flood, invasion, time itself, something will remain. And here's the haunting part. Empires have risen and fallen since Khufu's reign. Languages have disappeared, religions have shifted, borders have redrawn, yet the Great Pyramid still stands, not untouched, but unbroken. It has survived earthquakes, looting, erosion, and centuries of speculation. Its casing stones were stripped long ago, revealing its core. But its geometry persists. Its alignment remains. It is a structure that remembers. and perhaps that is why it captivates us. Because somewhere deep inside, we too want something that remembers us. The flood narrative in Genesis ends with a covenant. The Babel narrative ends with scattering. But human monument building never ends. From ziggurats in Mesopotamia to cathedrals in Europe to skyscrapers piercing modern skylines, we continue the pattern. We build upward, we build outward, we build to endure. The Great Pyramid may not directly reference Genesis. It does not carry biblical inscriptions. It is rooted firmly in ancient Egyptian culture. Yet when read through the broader story of humanity's response to vulnerability and ambition, it becomes part of a much older conversation. A conversation about fear, a conversation about knowledge, a conversation about whether permanence can be engineered. As we continue in this series, we will examine the engineering methods historians propose for its construction. We will explore what we know from archaeology, where debates still exist, and why its precision continues to inspire awe. We will separate evidence from speculation. We will explore symbolism without overstating certainty. But for now, Part 1 leaves us with a question that refuses to disappear. If a civilization invests its greatest energy into building something meant to outlast disaster, what were they preparing for? Were they preparing for the afterlife, for memory, for cosmic order, or simply for the human fear of being forgotten? The desert wind still moves across Giza, the sun still casts shadows along its edges, and the Great Pyramid still stands, silent, steady, and watching. In Part 2, we move from philosophy to precision. We will examine the measurable facts, the blocks, the alignment, the chambers, the engineering realities. Not to diminish mystery, but to understand it more clearly. Because sometimes, the closer we look at stone, the deeper the questions become. If the Great Pyramid represents memory in stone, then its language is mathematics. Before we explore symbolism, speculation, or spiritual reflection, we must first confront the measurable reality of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Because whatever one believes about its deeper meaning, one fact is undeniable. It is one of the most precisely executed architectural achievements of the ancient world. Let us begin with scale. The pyramid originally stood about 146.6 meters tall, roughly 481 feet, making it the tallest human-made structure on Earth for nearly 3,800 years. Its base spans approximately 230 meters on each side. The footprint alone covers more than 13 acres. It is composed of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, most weighing between 2 and 15 tons, with some internal granite beams weighing far more. Even today, standing at its base can feel disorienting. The stones are not small bricks. They are massive building units carefully stacked in ascending courses. And yet, despite its immense scale, the base is remarkably level. The four sides are aligned closely with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with only minimal deviation. How did builders working in the 3rd millennium BC achieve such accuracy? Mainstream Egyptology attributes the construction to Pharaoh Khufu during Egypt's 4th dynasty. Archaeological discoveries, including quarry inscriptions found in upper relieving chambers in the 19th century, reference work crews associated with Khufu. These markings, along with nearby worker villages, support the conclusion that the pyramid was a state-sponsored royal project, not the product of unknown or lost civilizations. Excavations around the Giza Plateau. Near Giza have uncovered evidence of organized labor forces, bakeries, barracks, and supply systems capable of sustaining thousands of workers. Contrary to older myths, there is no credible evidence that enslaved populations built the pyramid. Most researchers conclude it was constructed by skilled laborers and rotating work teams supported by agricultural cycles. But acknowledging this historical framework does not diminish the wonder of the achievement. Instead, it deepens it. Consider the orientation of the pyramid. To align a structure to true north with such minimal error requires careful astronomical observation. Ancient Egyptian surveyors likely used the circumpolar stars, stars that never set below the horizon, to establish directional reference points. By observing stellar positions and tracking their movement, they could approximate true north with impressive precision. This suggests patience, planning, repeated observation of the night sky. It reveals a civilization deeply attentive to cycles. The pyramid's internal layout adds another layer of intrigue. Inside, a descending passage leads to an unfinished subterranean chamber carved into bedrock. Ascending passages branch upward toward what is commonly called the Queen's Chamber and, higher still, the Grand Gallery leading to the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is constructed from massive granite blocks quarried from Aswan, hundreds of kilometers away. Above it sit 5 relieving chambers designed to redistribute weight and prevent collapse, an advanced engineering solution to the challenge of supporting immense overhead mass. When 19th century explorers accessed these chambers, they discovered quarry marks naming Khufu's crews, reinforcing the conventional attribution. These inscriptions are among the strongest pieces of evidence linking the pyramid to his reign. Yet even with historical clarity, questions remain, not about who built it, but about how such precision was maintained at scale. Several construction theories have been proposed. The most widely accepted involve large ramp systems used to transport blocks upward during construction. Straight ramps, spiral ramps, internal ramps. Each theory attempts to explain how heavy stones were raised progressively higher as the pyramid grew. No single theory has been universally confirmed. Archaeological evidence supports ramp usage in ancient Egypt generally, but the exact configuration for the Great Pyramid remains debated. What is clear is that Egyptians possessed sophisticated understanding of leverage, counterweight, and coordinated labor. We must resist the temptation to assume that ancient equals primitive. Egyptian civilization had already developed writing, administration, advanced agriculture, and monumental architecture long before Khufu's reign. The Great Pyramid did not emerge from ignorance. It emerged from centuries of experimentation. Earlier pyramids, such as the Step Pyramid of Djoser and the Bent Pyramid of Sneferu, show developmental stages in pyramid construction. They reflect learning curves, adjustments in angle, stability, and design. The Great Pyramid represents refinement. Its sides slope at an angle of approximately 51.5 degrees. Its proportions produce elegant geometric relationships. Some observers have noted that certain ratios approximate mathematical constants like pi. Whether intentional or coincidental remains debated among scholars. Most Egyptologists argue that the primary design principle was simple geometry, a specific slope ratio derived from practical construction methods rather than advanced theoretical mathematics. Still, the geometry is beautiful. The casing stones that once covered the exterior were made of polished white limestone. When intact, they would have reflected sunlight intensely, making the pyramid gleam. Imagine approaching it in antiquity, its smooth sides shining against the desert horizon, visible from miles away. This was not just a tomb. It was a statement. Not necessarily a statement of rebellion, but a statement of permanence. Inside the structure, narrow shafts extend from the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber outward. Some appear to align roughly with certain stars as they appeared around 2500 BC. For example, one southern shaft from the King's Chamber has been associated with Orion's belt in scholarly discussions, while another may align with Sirius. Interpretations vary. Some scholars argue these alignments reflect symbolic associations between the pharaoh and celestial realms. In Egyptian cosmology, the king was linked with divine order and the afterlife. Aligning architectural elements with celestial bodies could represent the pharaoh's spiritual journey rather than astronomical obsession. It is important to distinguish here between evidence and interpretation. The shafts exist. Their approximate alignments can be calculated. The symbolic meaning remains debated, and that distinction matters for both intellectual honesty and thoughtful exploration. Because mystery thrives not where facts are ignored, but where facts are understood and questions still linger. The more precisely we measure the pyramid, the more impressive it becomes. Its base is nearly square, with only minor variation between sides. Its leveling across the foundation is extraordinarily accurate. Its internal passages maintain consistent angles, All of this without modern machinery, laser levels, or powered cranes. This does not require lost super technology. It requires organization, patience, knowledge of materials, and disciplined execution across decades. Perhaps that is what makes it so compelling. It reveals what human beings are capable of when united around a single vision. And here is where engineering meets psychology again. To mobilize thousands of workers, coordinate quarrying, transportation, carving, placement, and finishing across 20 or more years requires not only technical skill, but ideological motivation. People must believe the project matters. They must see meaning in the labor. For ancient Egyptians, the afterlife was not abstract. It was central. The pharaoh's survival in the next realm was believed to sustain cosmic order. Monumental tomb construction was not vanity. It was theology in stone. Yet even with that cultural context, we cannot ignore the broader human impulse behind such undertakings. The desire to create something that will not easily disappear. The Great Pyramid has endured desert storms, earthquakes, and centuries of dismantling. Its outer casing was largely removed during the medieval period for use in other building projects. Yet the core remains stable. It has outlasted dynasties. It has outlasted empires. It has outlasted belief systems. And perhaps that endurance is its greatest message. In Part 1, we explored the psychological aftermath of catastrophe through the lens of Genesis and the Tower of Babel narrative. In Part 2, we have grounded ourselves in measurable engineering reality. No myths, no unsupported claims, only documented scale, alignment, and construction evidence. Now a deeper question emerges. If human beings in the 3rd millennium BC possessed the organizational power and astronomical knowledge to construct such a monument, what worldview sustained that effort? What story did they believe about themselves, the cosmos, and eternity? In Part 3, we return to the realm of worldview. We will explore how monument building reflects collective identity, how the Babel narrative illuminates recurring human ambition, and how civilizations use architecture not just to house the dead, but to define the living. Because when stone rises toward the sky, it is never only about burial. It is about belief. And belief, once embedded in architecture, can echo for millennia. Why do human beings build upward? Across continents and centuries, from stepped temples to cathedral spires to modern skyscrapers, one pattern repeats itself. We raise structures toward the sky. We carve mountains into monuments. We stack stone upon stone, steel upon steel, glass upon glass, until the skyline itself becomes a declaration. But a declaration of what? Power, security, faith, defiance, hope? To understand the deeper meaning behind the Great Pyramid of Giza, we must examine something older than Egypt, older than dynasties, older even than pyramids. We must examine the human desire to make a name. In the book of Genesis, there is a brief yet powerful account often referred to as the Tower of Babel. It describes a unified humanity speaking one language, settling in a plain, and deciding together. Let us build ourselves a city and a tower, and let us make a name for ourselves. It is one of the shortest architectural stories ever told, yet one of the most revealing. The issue was not engineering. The issue was motivation. The phrase, "make a name," carries weight. In ancient thought, a name represented identity, permanence, reputation across generations. To make a name was to secure legacy, to resist obscurity, to ensure remembrance. The tower in Genesis was not condemned for height alone. It symbolized centralized ambition and human self-definition apart from dependence on divine authority. According to the narrative, languages were confused and humanity scattered, disrupting the project. Whether one reads this account as literal history or theological symbolism, it captures something profoundly human. When we feel vulnerable, we build structures to secure identity. And vulnerability, as explored in Part 1, is central to post-catastrophe psychology. The flood narrative preceding Babel describes destruction, on a civilizational scale. The Babel narrative describes humanity attempting unity and stability afterward. Even outside biblical interpretation, we can observe this pattern historically. After crisis, societies consolidate. They build. They codify identity. Architecture becomes a stabilizing force. Now, shift your gaze back to ancient Egypt. By the time Pharaoh Khufu commissioned the Great Pyramid near Giza, Egyptian civilization had already developed a highly structured worldview. Kingship was sacred. Cosmic order, Ma'at, was central. The afterlife was detailed and systematized. Writing, taxation, and centralized governance were established. This was not a culture improvising identity. This was a culture reinforcing it. When the Great Pyramid rose against the desert sky, it did more than prepare a royal burial site. It materialized a world view. It said something about authority, about eternity, about the relationship between earth and heavens. Even if the pyramid functioned primarily as a tomb, it was also a public statement. Monuments always are. Consider how architecture operates psychologically. A monument changes how people see themselves. It anchors collective memory. It shapes civic pride. It signals continuity. The Great Pyramid did all of this, and more. Unlike the later pyramids that contain elaborate inscriptions and decorative texts, the Great Pyramid's interior is strikingly minimal. There are no grand narrative carvings on its inner walls. Its design emphasizes structure rather than ornament. This absence invites contemplation. It shifts focus from storytelling in text to storytelling in form. A perfectly squared base. 4 sides rising symmetrically. Converging lines meeting at a singular apex. It is geometry made monumental. In ancient cosmology, geometry was not merely mathematical, it was symbolic. Order reflected harmony. Precision reflected control. Alignment reflected participation in cosmic rhythms. To align a structure so closely with cardinal directions required deliberate astronomical observation. To construct it at such scale required long-term administrative stability. The pyramid did not emerge from chaos. It required order to exist. And here is where the connection to Babel becomes philosophical rather than historical. Both stories, Babel and the pyramid, reveal humanity organizing at scale around a shared project. Both involve vertical ambition. Both involve legacy. The difference lies in narrative framing. Genesis portrays Babel as an act of unified self-exaltation interrupted by divine intervention. Egyptian sources portray pyramid building as fulfillment of sacred kingship and cosmic duty. But beneath both accounts lies a universal impulse to define human destiny through construction. We do not merely build shelters, we build symbols, and symbols endure longer than words. Think of how many civilizations have vanished whose names we barely remember, yet whose ruins still speak. Stone survives when speech fades. Perhaps that is why monument building recurs in every age. It is an antidote to erasure. In ancient Mesopotamia, ziggurats rose tier upon tier. In Mesoamerica, stepped pyramids crowned city centers. In medieval Europe, cathedrals pierced clouds. In the modern era, skylines define national pride. The materials change. The engineering evolves. The impulse remains. When viewed this way, the Great Pyramid becomes part of a global pattern rather than an isolated marvel. It reflects what humans do when they have organization, belief, and long-term vision. They build upward. But here is the deeper tension. The biblical narrative repeatedly warns against mistaking human achievement for ultimate security. It presents cycles. Prosperity leading to pride, pride leading to overreach, overreach leading to correction. The Tower of Babel becomes a cautionary symbol, not against innovation, but against autonomy divorced from humility. Does the Great Pyramid represent such autonomy? Mainstream Egyptology does not frame it in those terms. For Egyptians, the pharaoh was mediator between divine and earthly realms. Pyramid construction expressed sacred continuity, not rebellion. Yet when we step back and observe from a wider human lens, we see how easily monumental success can nurture self-reliance. A civilization capable of building such a structure might understandably feel invincible. History shows, however, that no civilization remains unchallenged forever. Egypt endured for millennia, but dynasties fell. Foreign rulers came and went. Religious systems evolved. Temples were abandoned. Knowledge shifted. The Great Pyramid remained. And in remaining, it quietly testifies to both human brilliance and human limitation. Brilliance because it demonstrates coordination, geometry, astronomy, logistics. Limitation because even the mightiest empire that built it did not endure unchanged. This duality gives the pyramid its emotional power. It is a triumph and a reminder. It says, we can build astonishing things. It also says, time will outlast us. When we connect this to the Genesis narrative, we are not claiming direct blueprint transmission from Babel to Giza. There is no credible archaeological evidence for that leap. Instead, we are recognizing a shared human story. A story in which fear of scattering leads to centralization. A story in which desire for legacy leads to vertical construction. A story in which architectural ambition reflects internal longing. The longing to matter. The longing to endure. The longing to be remembered. The Great Pyramid answers that longing with stone. But stone, however massive, cannot answer deeper existential questions. It cannot explain suffering. It cannot guarantee moral wisdom. It cannot prevent societal decay. It can only stand. And standing, it invites reflection. In the Babel account, humanity sought to make a name. In Egypt, pharaohs inscribed their names across temples and monuments. Names mattered. Memory mattered. Even today, we inscribe names on buildings, bridges, and institutions. We want our efforts to outlast us. This is not inherently wrong. Creativity and construction are part of human nature. According to Genesis, humans are created with capacity to cultivate and build. The question is not whether to build, but what building represents. Is it gratitude? Is it worship? Is it control? Is it fear? Is it aspiration? Perhaps it is all of these at once. The Great Pyramid's geometry channels aspiration upward. Its base roots it firmly in earth. Its alignment connects terrestrial space with celestial reference points. It becomes a meeting point of ground and sky. Symbolically, that is powerful. But symbolism can be interpreted in many ways. For ancient Egyptians, it reflected the pharaoh's journey to the stars and participation in cosmic order. For modern observers reading through biblical lenses, it can evoke reflection on humanity's recurring attempts to secure permanence. For historians, it is a case study in state organization and labor management. For engineers, it is a masterclass in structural durability. One structure, many lenses. And that is what makes it enduringly fascinating. In Part 4, we will move even closer to the sky. We will examine ancient astronomy, the role of star observation in Egyptian culture, and how cosmic alignment influenced sacred architecture, not only in Egypt, but across civilizations. Because if towers and pyramids rise toward heaven, we must ask, what did ancient people see when they looked upward? And what did they believe those lights meant for human destiny? When stone aligns with stars, architecture becomes cosmology, and cosmology reveals how a civilization understands its place in the universe. If you were standing beside the Great Pyramid of Giza 4,500 years ago, long before city lights washed out the night sky, you would have seen something we rarely experience today. The heavens would have been overwhelming. A river of stars stretching horizon to horizon, constellations moving slowly through predictable paths, bright points rising and setting with seasonal rhythm, the Milky Way arching overhead like a luminous spine across the darkness. For ancient civilizations, the sky was not decoration, it was structure, it was calendar, it was clock, it was compass, it was theology. And if we are going to understand why the Great Pyramid was built the way it was, we must look upward. because ancient architecture was often aligned not just to land, but to light. Egyptian civilization developed along the Nile, and survival depended on anticipating the river's annual flooding. The heliacal rising of Sirius, its first visible appearance just before dawn after a period of invisibility, coincided closely with the Nile's inundation. This was not coincidence in the Egyptian mind. It was cosmic order. They saw rhythm in the sky reflected in rhythm on earth. And so astronomy became sacred. When Pharaoh Khufu commissioned the Great Pyramid near Giza, he did so within a culture already deeply attentive to celestial cycles. Egyptian priests and astronomer observers tracked star movements carefully. They understood cardinal directions through stellar observation. They structured temples and sacred spaces according to solar and stellar alignments. The Great Pyramid's orientation to true north is one of its most impressive measurable features. Achieving such alignment required sustained observation of the circumpolar stars, stars that never dip below the horizon and therefore rotate around a fixed point in the sky. By observing the vertical alignment of specific stars at particular moments, ancient surveyors could approximate north with surprising precision. This was not mysticism replacing science. It was observation leading to geometry. But beyond cardinal orientation, there are additional features inside the pyramid that have fascinated researchers for decades. From the king's chamber and the so-called queen's chamber extend narrow shafts, long angled passageways that connect interior spaces to the outer surface. These shafts are too small for human passage. Their function has been debated extensively. One interpretation suggests symbolic alignment with particular stars as they appeared around 2500 BC. For example, the southern shaft from the king's chamber has been associated in academic discussions with Orion's belt. Orion was linked in Egyptian mythology with Osiris, a deity associated with kingship and the afterlife. Another shaft may align roughly with Sirius, a star connected to Isis and renewal. Are these alignments exact? Scholars disagree. Some argue the matches are close enough to suggest intentional design. Others caution that slight deviations and shifting star positions over millennia complicate precise conclusions. What matters for our exploration is not proving cosmic secrets, but recognizing intentional skyward connection. Ancient Egyptians did not view the heavens as distant physical objects alone. The stars represented divine order. To align a structure with celestial bodies was to situate it within cosmic harmony. The pyramid, therefore, becomes not only a tomb, but a bridge between earth and sky. Now consider this from a broader human perspective. When people build structures that align with the heavens, they are making a statement. We belong to something larger. This impulse appears worldwide. Stonehenge aligns with solstices. Mesoamerican pyramids align with equinoxes. Temples in Asia track lunar cycles. Medieval cathedrals orient eastward toward sunrise. Civilizations look up and then build accordingly. This is not coincidence. It is identity. When we look at the sky, we confront scale. We see that we are small. We see order beyond ourselves, and we respond. Some respond with humility. Others respond with ambition. In Genesis, after the flood, humanity gathers and says, "Let us build." In Egypt, centuries later, civilization organizes around divine kingship and cosmic alignment. Different narratives, same upward movement. The sky becomes both inspiration and target. But here is where we must tread carefully. It is tempting in modern discourse to leap from astronomical alignment to claims of secret codes, hidden prophecies, or advanced knowledge far beyond historical evidence. Yet responsible exploration requires discipline. Ancient people were capable observers. They did not need alien intervention or lost high technology to track stars. Patience and generational knowledge were sufficient. The question is not whether they understood the cosmos perfectly by modern standards. The question is what they believed the cosmos meant. For Egyptians, the heavens represented permanence. Stars seemed eternal compared to fleeting human life. The pharaoh's association with the circumpolar stars symbolized participation in something unending. To align a royal tomb with the sky was to assert continuity beyond death. Now reflect on the psychological layer. If a civilization believes the sky reflects divine order, and if they have witnessed instability on Earth, floods, famines, political shifts, it makes sense to anchor architecture in celestial regularity. The stars do not scatter like tribes. They do not erode like walls. They repeat cycles reliably. Aligning a pyramid with celestial patterns could symbolize anchoring human destiny in cosmic stability. This does not require rebellion. It does not require secret agendas. It requires longing for permanence. And permanence is one of humanity's deepest desires. In Part 1, we explored memory after catastrophe. In Part 2, we examined engineering precision. In Part 3, we explored monument building as identity formation. Now, in Part 4, we see how cosmology intertwines with construction. Stone meets sky. Measurement meets myth. Observation meets meaning. But here is the subtle tension. The more humans understand the cosmos, the greater the temptation to believe they can master it. Knowledge empowers. Astronomy allowed ancient Egyptians to predict floods, structure calendars, and navigate space. But knowledge also fosters confidence, sometimes excessive confidence. From a biblical worldview, the sky declares divine glory. Human beings are invited to observe and steward creation, but not to claim ultimate control over it. When architecture mirrors the heavens, one question arises: is it reverence or assertion? Is it humility before order, or an attempt to participate in divinity? The answer may differ depending on perspective. For Egyptians, aligning the pyramid with stars likely represented sacred integration within cosmic order. For later readers interpreting through Genesis, it may evoke caution about human attempts to secure eternal status apart from divine covenant. Both readings highlight something important. Humans are not indifferent to the sky. We build in conversation with it. And this conversation continues today. Modern observatories pierce mountaintops. Space agencies launch telescopes beyond Earth's atmosphere. Skyscrapers reflect sunlight like mirrored obelisks. We still align architecture with aspiration. The Great Pyramid simply represents one of the earliest and most dramatic examples of that aspiration carved into stone. But there is one more layer to consider: time. The stars shift slowly due to axial precession. Over thousands of years, their apparent positions relative to Earth change gradually. This means that alignments designed in 2500 BC will not appear identical today. This subtle drift reminds us of something profound. Even celestial reference points change over long time spans. Permanence is relative. What feels eternal in one era may shift in another. The pyramid stands fixed while the sky slowly moves. That image alone invites reflection. Human beings strive for alignment with something stable, yet even the heavens display movement when measured across millennia. In this sense, the pyramid becomes both anchor and witness. It anchors a worldview of cosmic order. It witnesses the passage of time beyond its builder's imagination. In Part 5, we will draw these threads together. We will ask what the Great Pyramid teaches modern observers, not about hidden codes or secret prophecies, but about ambition, memory, fear, knowledge, and faith. Because after engineering, identity, and astronomy, one final question remains. What foundation truly endures? Stone can last millennia. Stars can mark cycles. Empires can dominate centuries. But what sustains meaning beyond all of them? As the night sky once stretched over ancient Giza, so it stretches over us now. And just as they looked up and built, we too must decide what our structures represent. In the end, every monument is a mirror, and what it reflects depends on how we choose to see it. What if the final pages of Scripture are not simply about the end of the world, but about the restoration of everything that was lost in the beginning? What if the story that began in a garden does not end in ashes, but in glory? From the opening chapters of Genesis to the last vision of Revelation, the Bible tells one continuous story: creation, fall, redemption, restoration. And now, in this final session, we come to the breathtaking conclusion of that story. A future where sorrow is erased, death is defeated forever, and God dwells openly with his people. Let us step into the closing vision given to the Apostle John in the book of Revelation. After the final judgment, after evil has been defeated, John writes that he saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and first earth had passed away. This does not mean God discards creation like a broken tool. It means he renews it, he restores it. Just as a master craftsman refines gold in fire, so the Lord purifies creation and makes it new. And then John sees something astonishing. The holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Notice the direction. It comes down. God's eternal plan is not for humanity to escape earth, but for heaven to join earth. The dwelling place of God comes to humanity. A loud voice declares, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men." Do you remember the tabernacle in the wilderness? The tent where God's glory dwelled among Israel? That was only a shadow. Now the reality arrives. There is no veil, no separation, no priest required to enter once a year. God himself dwells among his people fully and permanently. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Every tear. Tears from grief, tears from betrayal, tears from injustice, tears from loneliness. The Creator himself wipes them away. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain. Death, which entered through Adam, is finally destroyed. The curse spoken in Genesis is reversed. The thorns of the ground, the sweat of the brow, the anguish of childbirth, the struggle of survival, all undone. The one seated on the throne says, "Behold, I make all things new. Not I make all new things, but I make all things new." Redemption does not erase identity, it restores it. God does not discard his creation, he renews it in glory. John then describes the New Jerusalem with radiant imagery. Walls of jasper, streets of pure gold like transparent glass, foundations adorned with precious stones, 12 gates named after the tribes of Israel, 12 foundations bearing the names of the apostles. The entire story of Scripture, Israel and the Church, brought together in one eternal city. But perhaps the most stunning detail is this. There was no temple in the city. Why? Because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. In the Old Covenant, God's presence was confined to a sacred space. In eternity, his presence fills everything. There is no need for a sun or moon, because the glory of God gives it light. Think about that. No darkness, no shadows, no hidden evil, no fear of what lurks at night. The nations walk in that light. The kings of the earth bring their glory into it, and nothing unclean will ever enter. The river of the water of life flows from the throne of God and of the Lamb. On either side stands the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding fruit every month. The tree of life. The very tree that humanity was barred from in Eden now stands freely accessible in the eternal city. Genesis and Revelation mirror one another. In Genesis, humanity was driven out of the garden to prevent them from eating of the tree and living forever in a fallen state. In Revelation, redeemed humanity eats from the tree and lives forever in righteousness. The curse is gone. His servants shall see his face. In the Old Testament, no one could see God's face and live. Now his people see him without fear. Intimacy restored, fellowship complete, and they shall reign forever and ever. The dominion given to Adam, lost through sin, is restored to humanity through Christ. We were created to rule under God's authority. In eternity, that purpose is fulfilled without corruption. The final words of Revelation include a promise and a warning. Surely, I am coming quickly. The return of Christ is not a distant myth, it is a certain promise, and the Spirit and the bride say, "Come." The invitation remains open, Whoever thirsts may come. Whoever desires may take the water of life freely. This is not forced, it is offered. The Bible ends not with a command, but with an invitation. And so the story that began with a question in Eden, "Has God really said?" ends with a promise, "Surely I am coming." From garden to city, from curse to crown, from exile to home. The entire narrative of Scripture reveals a God who pursues, redeems, restores, and reigns. But what does this mean for us now? It means history is not random. It is purposeful. It means suffering is not permanent. It has an expiration date. It means justice will prevail. It means death does not have the final word. It means the Creator who formed humanity from dust has prepared an eternal kingdom for those who trust Him. And here is the most powerful truth of all. The same God who will one day make all things new is already making hearts new today. The kingdom begins within before it is revealed without. As we conclude this 5-part journey, from Genesis to Revelation, we see one unbroken thread. God creates, humanity falls, God promises, Christ redeems, the Spirit transforms, and God restores. The Bible is not a collection of disconnected stories. It is one grand narrative of redemption. The question that remains is personal. Will we respond to the invitation? Will we drink from the water of life? Will we live now in light of eternity? Because the final chapter has been written. The King is coming. And the story does not end in darkness. It ends in glory. As we come to the end of this powerful journey, from Genesis to Revelation, I want to sincerely thank you for staying with me through every session. Your time is precious, and it means so much that you chose to spend it exploring the Word of God together. If this series has blessed you, encouraged you, or deepened your understanding even a little, please consider supporting the channel. Like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so you don't miss future teachings. And I would truly love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share what touched your heart the most. Remember this: no matter what season you are in, God is still writing your story. The same Creator who formed the world with His Word is still faithful today. He has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned His promises, and His plan is still unfolding. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May His peace guard your heart and mind. May His truth guide your steps, and His hope fill your home. Until next time, stay faithful, stay watchful, and stay rooted in His Word. Amen.